it's still a very unique situation. So let's talk about the National Guard that he's bringing in. What's your understanding about the National Guard's role?
Well,
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean,
just
just
generically,
generically,
they're
they're
sort of
sort
the
of the
nation's
nation's
police
police
force,
force,
and
and
they're
they're
not
not
supposed to
supposed
be
to be
used
used
for
for
the
the
kind
kind
of
of
domestic
domestic
takeover
takeover
that
that
he's
he's
doing,
doing,
but I
but I
only
only
have a
have a
thumbnail
thumbnail
sketch
sketch
of what
of
their
what their
defined
defined
role
role
is. I've
is. I've
heard
heard
people
people
talk
talk
about it,
about it,
but I've
but I've
never
never
looked
looked
into
into
the
the
actual
actual
specifics.
specifics.
Well, it's my understanding, being prior military and all that, uh, which had never happened in my lifetime, the DC, being National Guard on the street. But I also know that if he puts them on there, it's only he can only do it for 30 days without congressional approval. That I know for a fact. So uh, I don't know if this is just going to be for 30 days and he's going to play the game and try to get it renewed every 30 days or whatever he's going to do. But I know that for a fact that only 30 days, the initially, is how long they're going to be able to be there, unless Congress gives him unlimited authority to do whatever he wants to do with them.
Interesting,
Interesting,
because
because
I
I
thought
thought
I
I
saw
saw
something to
something
the
to the
effect
effect
of
of
it's
it's
only for
only for
48
48
hours.
hours.
So
So
part of
part
what
of
he's
what he's
doing is
doing
only
is
good
only
for
good for
48
48
hours,
hours,
and then
and
he
then
would
he would
need a
need a
Right.
two-thirds
two-thirds
majority
majority
to
to
keep it
keep it
going.
going.
I don't
I
know
don't know
about.
about
Right.
I
I
didn't
didn't
hear
hear
about the
about the
30-day
30-day
part, but I
part, but
did
I
hear
did hear
about
about
48
48
hours,
hours.
and they
And
could
they
be
could
two
be two
different
different
things. I'm
things.
not
I'm not
sure.
sure.
I think one of them was the Capitol Police.
Right.
Right.
That might be part of it, but I'm almost positive that the National Guard's part of it is 30 days.
Right.
Right.
That but again, I might be wrong. I have been in my lifetime, so
Yeah.
I haven't
So
looked into it.
obviously, there's a lot going on with this. This is part of the chaos that he's constantly bringing to America to cover up his alleged crimes and all that stuff. So this is just I just find this to be wild. This is one of those things where, as I said, um, I hated to be right about this because I've been warning about this since 2015.
Well, yeah, this is part of his theory also of shock and awe to distract the American people on the stuff that he's doing behind the scenes and the wasteful spending that he's doing on the White House
And the
and what
grifting and the just
oh yeah.
bribe after bribe after bribe. By the way, Bunny Thompson tells me that he named Pam Bondi head of DC Police, so that's a fucking disaster.
Yeah, but I don't know if he can legally do that or not. I'm not, that doesn't sound
Right. But this is the
maybe for
problem.
48 hours.
I've been talking about this for a while, and this is part of what he's counting on. It takes what 5 seconds to sign an executive order, right? It's just ba 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 ba.
Right.
Steve Miller in one of his fucking Uber Alice fever dreams decides that he's going to do something else illegal, and then he puts that in front of Dump and he signs it in 5 seconds, and then it's going to take years for the law to rectify whatever illegal thing that Dump did. And it's sort of a flaw in the law, but it's part of what makes the American legal system work, is that it's not about racing to the finish, it's about seeking justice, theoretically speaking. So in a way it's good that you can't do things quickly in the law, but when you have someone that's exploiting that, then it becomes a weakness. And that's what Dump's
Right.
doing. He understands that he's just going to keep allegedly breaking the law and that we will not be able to catch him in time.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be his modus operandi that he's trying to do. That he's and to assign his own personal attorney uh,
Yeah.
to be in charge of the DC police, that is just
And a
unthought of.
terrible attorney at that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even the deputy of the attorney general, it was his criminal attorney when he was up for his 34 counts of
Mm-hmm.
fraud.
Yeah. And by the way, I watched that case and all of the cases every single day for 2.5 years. And that attorney did such a terrible job in the fraud case. Like he when he when he cross-examined Michael Cohen,
Hmm.
the media, the mainstream media, which, just to remind everybody, is fucking useless, right? They were saying, like, guys like Ari Miller and a few other people were like, "Oh my God, it was unbelievable! It was a slaughter! It was a bloodbath!" And then I read the transcript, and it was a mustard burp. The guy accomplished almost nothing, and then they actually, on redirect, proved that Todd Blanche had all the facts wrong.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's this is if it wasn't so bad, this would be the biggest joke in the history of this
Exactly.
country.
Exactly. Hey, Jordan. Hey, make the rounds. What's going on? Jacob, thank you for the heart
Yeah.
me. Jordan, thank you for the heart me.
AC's here.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. And Simon Third said Stephen Miller has said he wants an America that looks like him. He's horrible. Yes, and that includes reducing the population of America to 100 million people. So, gee, ethnic cleansing. Anybody? Any of that ring a bell to anybody?
Also, it was discussed over the weekend and on Truth Social and stuff that Trump wants to uh, uh, do away with the homeless in Washington D.C. He's telling them to
Right.
get out of town.
Right.
Any thoughts?
Oh yeah. Well, you know, very often, even though Dump is an idiot and he usually spills the beans completely, in this case, you have to read between the lines.
Right,
What he's talking about when he says, "Oh, we're going to relocate the homeless," right? We're going to give them a place to live outside of the city. What
right.
he's referring to, without saying it, but it's obvious, is the concentration camps. That's what he's
Yep,
talking about. Because again, his buddies are going to make money on this because private prisons are for profit. And when you have
right.
a for profit prison, you need customers, and those customers are called prisoners. And what easier people to round up than the homeless? I mean, it's
Absolutely.
disgusting on every level, but that's what he's talking about. What did people think he's going to put them up in hotels? No, he's talking about relocating them to places outside the city. That's exactly what he's talking about. Swim says
And
it's
I'm
all
sure
in
that,
P 2025. Absolutely. Yes, swims, they are gulags, they are camps, and for people that want to fight the idea of concentration camp, do yourself a favor. Number one, shut the fuck up and learn something. Number two, just read the definition of what a concentration camp is, and you'll see that these are fucking concentration camps.
yep. Even though a lot of people argue, well, we put the Japanese in internment camps. Uh,
Yeah.
there ain't a lot of difference between an internment camp and a concentration camp, folks.
Hey,
I hate to tell you.
Juliet from Romeo and Juliet said, "That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet." So you want to call it internment camp, you want to call it prison camp, you want to call whatever you call it, it's the same fucking thing. Okay?
Yep.
And speaking of internment camps, I just want to divert for a moment. Some of you probably saw that Dean Cain made a promotional video to recruit ICE agents, okay, on behalf of this corrupt, disgusting administration. Now, in most other instances where a celebrity decides to align themselves with an administration, that's not news. But when a minority does it and aligns himself with his oppressors, that is news to me. And for those of you who don't know, Dean Cain's actual last name is Tanaka. He is Japanese. His family was placed in a Japanese internment prison during World War II in Idaho. So this fucking idiot immigrant is shilling for his oppressors, for the people who oppressed his family. What a piece of shit.
Absolutely. Yep. And there was a lot of famous movie stars that their family were put in those camps during World War II. The guy that played Sulu on Star Trek, he was in the camp
George
himself.
Takei.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. George Takei
So
talks extensively about that. And, you know, he was old enough to remember what was going on and he experienced all of the horrors of it, you know, because people, you know, this is one of those things that happens with historical events. We use these words to describe them and we have the intellectual understanding of it, but until we sit and think about the reality of those things, we don't fully understand the horror of it, and we certainly don't fully understand the extent of it, especially when the winners who perpetrated the crimes are the ones who wrote the history, right? But one of the things that was done to the Japanese during that time was their property was stolen. When they were put in
yep.
prison, their property was stolen. They were landowners, homeowners. A high percentage of them owned homes and land, and the government took all that from them. It was a land grab, amongst other things. You know, it was just scapegoating a race of people because because they had the power to do it, and they got away with it. And now we talk about it. Oh, internment camps. No, this was prison for American citizens, and just because of hatred and paranoia. You know, it's just insane. And yes, Swim said that's exactly what happened to Jewish people in World War II. And obviously, it lines up perfectly except for one major difference, but still everything else is the same. And that's what we're going to see. This is what all these prison camps are for, because crime is down. So why do you need all these extra prisons? Oh, because you intend to fill them. And you're going to fill them. You're going to pretend that it's going to be about criminals, because that's the story that they told us about immigrants. Oh, we're just going to go after the violent criminals. Well, there's less than 10,000 of those in America. We know this. Okay, we know what the numbers are. There's less than 10,000 violent criminals. So that could have taken you a couple weeks, couple months to round all those people up. But obviously, that's not where you stopped. You went from violent criminals to anyone that doesn't look right, to people that are going to their immigration hearings to follow the rules, which you keep saying they have to do, to whoever I feel like, to American citizens. So this lie has been completely exploded, and in reality, it's just let's round up whoever we feel like it to fill the prisons so we can make money.
Well, you know, there also this is very there's some similarity with the deportation with the illegal, undocumented people. Some of those people actually own homes here.
Of
Some of them have
course.
purchased homes. Then, with them being deported, you know that their government's going to be taking them over
Sure.
because you know
Yep.
they didn't have time to have anything set up to give it to somebody in their family. So obviously, it's a land grab again
Yep.
on some of these people. Same with the homeless people. Some of these homeless people, some of them, they actually have jobs.
Right.
They just can't afford to live in Washington D.C. because it's so damn expensive, and that's why a lot of them don't live in the district itself because of that reason. But not everybody can afford to do that either
What a
around there.
great country where people with jobs are homeless. That's American greatness, folks.
And also it's happened in DC, not DC, but LA. The expense of living out there in California, the homeless there in
Oh,
LA
yeah.
in that area, it isn't that the people aren't working, the people just can't afford to find a place to live.
And some of them are making $80,000 a year in tech jobs and they're sleeping in their car. Hey, Stephen Martin, good
Correct.
to see you. Good to see you back always. Swish, hi.
But they're trying to make it a criminal, them criminals for being homeless.
Yeah.
That's insane. I don't even know where they get that statute from.
Well, what they do is they create a situation where it's impossible for people to pay their bills. I just found out last night that student loan defaults are at a 21-year high,
Correct.
right? Because people can't afford it. You fuck the economy up and you make it so people are making less money, they can't keep up with inflation, and then uh and by the way, what we're going to see next is the most obvious thing, which is debtor's prison. Right, we're going to see that
Right.
come back as like we're back in It's a Wonderful Life, where you could put someone in jail for owing money. Right, so that's where we're going to.
Well, that's the way it was like during the Great Depression. They were literally taking their homes and everything, and then when they
Yep,
couldn't pay the money back, they would go ahead and put them in camps of some type
yep,
or prison.
yep.
And you're right, but I'm afraid we're heading back toward that direction of the Calvin Coolidge days. Uh, and you know, I don't think there's personally, I don't think there's a way back from this in my lifetime. I don't, and what do you think?
That remains to be seen. I mean, it's this is dark. This is very dark. Let me bring up Stephen Martin real quick.
Okay,
Wait, what happened here? Oh, if I bring up another co-host, I'll be disconnected. Sorry, Stephen, I can't bring you up. Danny and I are doing this co-host thing, and it only lets us connect
have
this
two
way.
at a time.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, I mean,
If Steven sticks around, I can do it after you're going to be
yeah, yeah,
taking
yeah.
off here in a little bit,
Yeah, yeah.
and I can
So
bring him up.
yeah, Stephen, hang out because I actually have to jump off in about 32 minutes for a conference call, and hopefully that will only last about a half hour. But in the meantime, that's a question that is difficult to parse because we obviously don't know all the plans that Dump has. We can extrapolate based on what we already know about him, so we know this is not heading in a good direction. We know, at least in my firm opinion, he's desperate about the midterms. Because if you're confident about winning the midterms, you don't do illegal shit to rig the vote. You don't call up governors and say, let's do a mid-cycle reshuffling of everything so that we suddenly have more seats. There's no need to do that if you're confident you're winning. There's no need to take over the District of Columbia in order to ensure that you can do your dry run in martial law so that you can effectuate change when election time comes, because this is just a preview of what he's going to do in 2028. If anybody thinks he's planning to step down, you're out of your fucking mind. He's never leaving if he can help it. If hopefully people will be completely sick of this shit by then, and we're going to yank him out if he doesn't want to go. But you know, this is nuts. William says nothing illegal about. John White says dump 2028. So, John White, that means that you are un American because you don't support the Constitution. The Constitution says that he can't run again, but you're so fucking un American that you want him to run again. What trash you are.
Well, that's a prime example of his followers. That I saw a poll that was done about if Trump were on the epi list, that he would or epi file. Would that change your mind about Donald Trump? And they said nope. Not 46% said no.
Yeah,
That
40,
tells you how
I
sick these
think it was
people.
47%, and that translates to 36 million people.
Right? How crazy is that?
It is crazy. Stephen asked me, have you been reading about the senior care crisis? I've heard snippets of it. I have not been reading about it. Someone's claiming that what Dump is doing is legal. Well, yeah, the Constitution says that you're wrong about that, William, but this is what I expect from a propaganda parrot. All you can do is repeat what Donnie Dump tells you because you have no brain for yourself. Sad, 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 pathetic people.
That's absolute truth there. So please keep tapping the screen, sharing out this live. We're at 10,300 likes. I greatly appreciate it.
So Danny's
We can
beating me
start.
with likes. What's going on, folks? There's 15 of us in here, and we only have 1,600 likes. I'm embarrassed. I'm kidding. I haven't felt embarrassment in decades. But
I got a whole five people in there.
see
Yeah,
that?
you got all the people. So
Yeah. Well, that's okay. Luckily, this is not a conversation. Kit says on a
no, it's
side note, but we've been screaming about other rights since they overturned Roe. Yeah. Maybe you could say that a different way, Kid. I'm not exactly clear on what you're saying, but generally, I get yes. We've been screaming about all sorts of stuff since they overturned Roe.
yeah, they're like broken records. They come up with the same old stuff about AB and all this other stuff has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. We're talking about the takeover of Washington D.C., the District of Columbia, by the Trump fascist regime. So we need to get and stand up a silent revolution. We can't do a violent one right now. So that is not the answer, but we need to stand up and start working our phones, sending out emails, doing what we can to change all this.
Hey, Penelope, thanks for the heart, me. Good to see you as always. See,
Hello,
you're,
P,
yeah,
Mrs.
we're
P.
on, Danny and I are both on Penelope's team at the agency. So here we are doing our thing, Penelope. Because, what's going on now is just insane. This is really like, I'm trying to, I'm trying to avoid getting swept up in it emotionally, but it's hard because this is really crazy. This is like, and I feel bad. It has just occurred to me.
I've been open.
I feel really bad for people like you who are real patriots, people who put their lives on the line to protect America, and other people similar to you that maybe didn't join the armed service, but they have a very strong emotional connection to America. They love America. They're proud to be American, not in that goofy Lee Greenwood way, but like they just, they were raised in a country that constantly told them to be proud to be American, and they're proud to be American. And I get that. And this has got to be heartbreaking for you and those other types of people. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, like I was saying earlier when I started up, I have, in my 22 years in the Army, I never saw this. I saw demonstrations in the Capitol because of Vietnam, and there was a lot of protests, and there were some, stuff I didn't agree with at all then. But the thing is, when it comes down to the bottom line, is that the military in itself was never supposed to be used for domestic issues in the United States. And if it seems like this president, this administration, this so-called mafia is all they're trying to do is push us into that. And what was sad about it is we saw a glimpse of what he wanted to do with the military and the DC police before with the Black Lives Matter movement when they were doing that protest down there in Washington D.C. And he literally wanted to poo-poo people in the leg and protesters like that by the military, and was trying to get the order. And that's when the general, the in charge of the Joint Chief of Staff, Billy, told him, "No, sir, we are not going to do that." He said, "I went as far as I'm going to do by putting the troops out there for you in the first place." And there was a lot of arguments, but even over the weekend, he again fired the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, that Air Force general, and also on top of that, there probably been 30 senior generals of the United States military has resigned within the last 72 to 48 hours.
Because he wants loyalists.
Yes.
He wants loyalists and sycophants running the government around him. This is exactly what a mafia don does. You know, you only have your trusted people around you. Anyone that doesn't toe the line, you have to get rid of them. The only difference between what Dump is doing and the mafia is that he's allowing people to retire and walk away. But just for the people that are younger that maybe don't know about this, I want to remind you of what happens when you involve the National Guard in places where they uh, really aren't meant to be. May 4th, 1970, Kent State, Ohio. There was a Vietnam War protest going on,
Yep.
and it was college students, and the National Guard was brought in, and for inexplicable reasons, decided to open fire on a crowd of unarmed college students, and 4 of them perished that day. Is this what we want in America? Is this part of being great?
And I didn't even hear about that or know about that until I got back from Vietnam, because I was in the hospital. I was no state where I even knew what was going on at the time because of my condition. And I heard that, and it brought me to tears. Literally, I'm in the hospital bed there crying my ass off when I found out about that, watching uh, a brief news about it and what happened and what came about of it. Seeing the funeral of those kids on live TV was heartbreaking.
Can only
You know,
imagine. I mean, Tina the Endless says, I am a veteran and it is heartbreaking. Yeah, I mean, it just, I am filled with dread about this. And I'm not a veteran. I'm not a patriot. I don't consider myself American. I live here. That's it. That's the extent of my involvement with this piece of shit country. And I know it upsets people when I say that. I don't care. Be better. If America was a better country, I wouldn't be talking about it the way I do. I don't want it to be this shitty. I live here and people that I love live here. I would love it to be a much better place. It just isn't.
I watched this morning they tried to open up the not to change the subject, the Texas House today down there in Texas, because they're trying to pass this
Mm-hmm.
gerrymandering bill that they have. And plus other bills. There's some important bills there too, but this one, but they couldn't get a quorum. But before they started, they did the prayer like most houses do, and they do the pledge of allegiance. But this state, which I've only seen it in this state, does a pledge of allegiance to Texas. They have their own pledge for Texas, which I remember it was a country in its own self at one time. So I can understand the philosophy, but I had never seen it in person. I mean, or
Yeah.
on TV or
Yeah.
ever before.
I mean, I would say in common times, in normal times, though I don't like to use the word normal, but in common times, that would not in and of itself trouble me because each state has its own charter, each state has its own laws. So, all right, you have a pledge. I would think of it as goofy, but now I see it as just another indication of what's wrong with things.
No, I agree with you, Vicky. I didn't grow up there, but I never even heard that they had their own separate pledge.
Yeah.
Um, I just thought that was odd when I saw it. It was odd to me.
Yeah, well, it is on brand for Texas. I mean, they tried to get off the national grid and fuck that up completely. But Kit apostrophe says, I wish my great grandparents never fled Poland. I know why they did it, but it's repeating, right? And Kit, I agree with you 100%. I've been saying this since 2015. I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm saying it because I have a hard time believing that I was so right about this motherfucker 10 years ago. I said, listen to this guy talk. He sounds like that guy from the 1930s in Germany. This is a problem. And I caught
Right.
so much shit for it. I had friends, like friends in real life, friends I went to school with, that were sending me private messages, angry at me that I would dare say something like that. And I'm like, look, I'm not a fucking genius. I just know how to read English. And I read history. I am aware of the history of it. My stepfather was Jewish. He lost family during that time in World War II. And so I knew about this. Above and beyond what was taught in school, this was a very personal thing for me because of my stepfather. And so when I'm hearing someone, anyone, anywhere, because I've heard this rhetoric in other countries. Right now, as we speak, there are 50 dictatorships in the world. Okay, this happens. This is a thing that people do, and countries uh, very often turn from being democratic to being fascist. It's happened before, and not a long time ago. This has happened recently, where countries turned fascist. Okay, and so when I hear a guy sounding like the worst fascist in history, that perks my ears up, and it doesn't matter where that guy is. It doesn't matter that whether he's speaking in another country or he's speaking in America. What matters is what he's saying. And what matters is that the history that Dump invoked in 2015 alarmed me because I know that there's no good way that this ends. Now, the good guys might win, and I certainly hope the good guys win. That's why I'm up here with you tonight. I want the good guys to win. But the road to victory is going to be dark and it's going to be ugly. This is not going to go well, folks. It's not going to go well. Hi, Cherry. Good to see you. Cherry jumped into my
I'm not
life and she's saying, hi, Grandpa. See, you're more important than I am.
I don't know about that.
No, but I mean, it's just, it's, I feel like the town crier. I really do. I feel like the guy that runs down the street saying all is lost, and I don't want to be that guy. But how much does America have to resemble Germany from 1933 before people figure it the fuck out.
That's right, absolutely. And like I was saying, I wish I'm wrong, but I'm not going to see the turnaround in my lifetime. I hope you do, but I don't think I'll see the turnaround.
Man,
And I hope,
that's a sad idea. I mean, that's fucking depressing. That's fucking depressing to think that that could be true. And I wish I could disagree with you. I wish I could reassure you and be like, "Oh, Danny, it's going to be fine. Don't worry." I can't. That would be dishonest of me because I don't feel that. I feel like it's really going to get fucking bad. And right now, this is the calm before the storm. This last 6.5 months has been about spinning up the machinery, right?
yep,
This is the same thing that we've seen every fucking time. We see them go after journalists. We see them go after political opponents. We see them jailing dissidents. This is what we've seen in history over and over and over again. And now he's bringing in the military to govern over the citizens of the country. Folks, what else do you need? What else do you need? What other horrible thing has to happen before you wake
I
the fuck
hear it.
up?
Well, you know, and I know that these camps that they're erecting in each of these states, and more than one in a lot of them, they're never going away.
Right?
They'll just keep adding them, and like you said, down the way, you're right. Debtor prisons are coming in next, and they'll use those places once they get all the brown people out of here that they don't want here anymore. Then they'll start utilizing for that for the homeless and all the other stuff. They're going to make, and these are going to be plantations, and they're
Mm-hmm.
going to be doing work for
Forced labor,
pittance.
100%. And you know what's going to make it all possible? The 13th Amendment, the thing that people celebrate as the thing that ended slavery. I got news for you. What it created was slave labor in prison.
Yep,
Literally. It's the first sentence in the fucking amendment. It says essentially slavery is illegal unless they're in prison.
yep. And now you can see it's kicking in. They're in full mode to get this thing going, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh,
But it's depressing. This was not the way of positive change, you know. But I'm having a hard time finding a way to see something positive out of this, to pull us out of this, other than we need a revolution. But the thing is, we're even limited to what kind of revolution we can do without them doing total martial law across the country. You know,
and that's the problem. Again, this goes along with what I was saying earlier about wrecking the law and breaking the law at such a large scale. It's going to take years to rectify. It's the same with the desire for peaceful protest, which is the default setting, right? We want peaceful protests. But at a certain point, when the peaceful protests don't work, because they're not gonna, I'm sorry to
no,
say that
absolutely.
this thing with, oh, we're gonna black out spending for one day, that's not gonna get the job done, folks. I'm sorry, it just isn't. And I hate to be so negative. I hate to discourage people because that's not what I'm trying to do. I don't want to discourage you. What I want to do is alarm you so that you understand what we're facing. Okay? This is why I got together with Danny today to do this. I normally coast during this time of the night. I'm usually just in the box talking and contributing to the conversation with Danny. But I thought that this was too important to do that I had to come up and say, "Hey, folks, not this isn't happening anymore. It has happened." Okay, and the only thing that terrifies me more than what has already happened is what I imagine will happen next. Because the playbook is being followed. The fascist playbook We know what happens. We know the steps that fascist regimes take because literally they take the same steps every fucking time. And
every
so
time.
this is it. We're in it. This is no longer a thing. This is no longer a concept that might happen sometime in the future. This is it. This is the reality that we're in. And there's tons of ways that people are distracted. And I'm not being judgmental, I'm being factual. You know, we've got the Kardashians shaking their ass on television, and we got 31 flavors at Baskin and Robbins. I get it. There's all sorts of distractions. There's 5,000 channels you can look at. You're struggling to pay your bills. You're 2 weeks away from homelessness at any given time. If you have a heart attack or break your leg or something, you know literally that you can lose your home. That is the number one cause of bankruptcy these days, is a medical issue. Okay?
Yep.
We know that the number one way children expire in America is through armaments that are legally obtained in a country obsessed with armaments. Okay? So there's a lot to distract us, you know, and there's this thing called the Overton window, and it's a psychological concept. Basically, of all the things that are going on, there's a small window of your attention that you're going to be able to focus on. Can't focus on everything all at once. It's just essentially impossible. You know, when I go through my podcasts and like, you know, I got up while I was making some food and stuff. I'm looking at YouTube, and every podcast was essentially saying the sky is falling, and rightfully so. But then there's tons of other podcasts that are like, hey, what's the new fashion trend for fall of 2025? And again, I'm not saying that to disparage them. I understand, like, this is the reality. Like, not everybody is dialed in to the reality of what we're seeing. You know, like even on 9/11, one of the things that I used to talk to my ex-wife about, because we were in the city that day, was essentially 2 miles from downtown was where I was. And when we went to her father's office on 57th Street, and this was after the two towers had collapsed,
Right.
there were people sitting in cafes with their legs crossed sipping lattes, right? And that's an image that's burned into my memory, because I was like, wait a second, like, we all know what's happening right now, and you're sitting here casually sipping a latte. Like this is not some insane situation, but that's the reality of people, right? While you and I are sitting here talking, other people are playing Wordle because they're not dialed into what's going on here. And again, not to judge them, just to be factual. This is what's going on. So there's a lot of people that just really either don't know, or they'll hear something and they don't fully understand the implication of what they're hearing.
Absolutely. So I think it's getting close for you to have to.
Yeah, I got a few minutes. Daryl
Okay,
asked the
good.
question, what did you want them to do? What did I want who to do, Daryl? Maybe get more specific in your question. Thank you, Matthew. Good to see you, Matthew. I caught your live for a few minutes today. Um, yeah, I mean, it's the lyrics of an Elton John song. It's sad, so sad. It's a sad, sad situation, and it's getting more and more absurd. That's where we are. Because the worst is yet to come, folks. The worst is yet to come. Because eventually there's going to be a breaking point. You can only keep your foot on people's necks for so long. And there's going to be a breaking point. And what that breaking point looks like is yet to be determined. But if we go by history, it ain't going to be pretty. There are going to be a lot of people that lose their life. on all sides of the equation. You know, let's remember what J6 looked like. That was just a couple thousand people. What happens when that couple thousand turns into a couple million? You know, the No Kings
Yep.
March was 5 million people. Now, Matthew had mentioned earlier on his podcast that on his live that that was the largest protest in American history, and that's true. However, in order to get to the threshold where we will see something dramatic happen, we have to look through history to understand what it takes to move a government. And if you look at the protests from the year 1900 to the year 2006, the ones that succeeded non-violently, and by the way, non-violent protests succeed something like 3 times more often than violent ones do. So we prefer non-violent ones. But what it takes is 3.5% of the population. So when you reach that threshold of roughly 3.5%, then things have a good chance of going the way you want them to go. In America, what that would mean is roughly 12 million people, somewhere like 11 to 12 million people. So as impressive as that No King's March was, it's still inadequate numbers. It's a sign, it's a good sign. It was a very encouraging sign to me that that many people came out. But it's not enough. And I'm going to remind you of one last thing before I break off to go do my conference call. Martin Luther King was the spearhead for what I think is the most successful protest in American history. And the reason why it was successful, and I think it's the main reason why it was successful, there are two. There are two big reasons why it was successful. One is that they disrupted commerce. And in a capitalist country, that is the language that speaks the loudest. So they disrupted commerce, but here's the most important part that everyone has to understand so we can stop with these bullshit one-day protests. And again, I'm sorry to be so demeaning, but let's get fucking real. One day is not doing shit. They'll feel the pinch, they won't like it. It's not enough. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted over a year. 1 year of daily, no breaks, no mercy, no letting up for 1 year. That's what it's going to take. And in this case, it might take longer.
Yep. I agree.
I hope today that we're planting the seed that needs to be planted. You know, this is only the second time that I've come up as a co-host on Danny's Live. First time was months and months ago. And it was fun, but we were like, whatever. And we never did it again, right? But the reason why I felt it was important to come up tonight is to plant the seed, and I want everybody to spread it. Start talking about this. Start talking about 3.5%, 12 million people working in unison for a minimum of a year and possibly longer. That is the only way a peaceful protest is going to work, because if that doesn't work, we're left with a horrifying alternative that will happen. It will happen. So we don't want to get to that point. All right? We're ready to do it if we need to do it. You know, I've lived a good long life. I've had a lot of adventures. My life has been magnificent. With all the pain, with all the hurt, with all the whatever, I've had a phenomenal life. I'm 61 years old. So if I get thrown in the gulag tomorrow, so be it. If I get mowed down at a protest, so be it. But that's what the fuck it's going to take, folks. We can't fuck around anymore. It can't be about convenience. I'm not going to shop at Amazon tomorrow. Great. But that's not going to get the job done. It's going to take blood, sweat, and tears, folks. And with that, I'm going to peel off for a little while. I will be back when I can. Folks, let's keep this going. All right? Talk to you all soon.
Thanks, Yoddah.